There's a band called P. Yo, this actually kind of goes like really freaking hard. This is like a really weird like Midwest emo math rock kind of thing, and this came out in what, 96? Wow. There's like very little information about this band out there. I think I know what I have to do. Our story begins in San Francisco in the early 1990s. Guitarist/vocalists Jim Stanley and Kelly Green formed a rock band and were getting ready to play their first show when all of a sudden they realized, oh shit, we don't have a name. The two pondered what they should have called themselves for what I'm guessing was all of 5 minutes before settling on the name P. I was so baffled by this decision that I took it upon myself to track them down and ask them personally, and Jim gave me an answer along the lines of,
well, I think last time we were together, Kelly and I were playing, this was before Tiber Andy, but we were the first incarnation of the band, and we had a show, and we needed a name for the band, and we threw names around, and I think I've been blamed for making the suggestion, but she concurred, and then the name was born. It seemed appropriate at the time, but then we got quickly tired of it. But then it just stuck, because then people continue to come to see your shows, or they like your band, and it stuck. And so this was always a dialogue through the whole course of the band of changing the name of the band. I don't think there's a single time we ever got together where it didn't come up.
Judging from the group's earlier single art, whether that be Jonah bleeding out of his ass, a kid peeing in a kiddie pool, or this thing, it's clear that they were comfortable enough with the name to embrace it, at least for a few years. Joining the two later on were drummer Andy Connors and bassist Ty Brashear, forming the iconic lineup responsible for their 1996 album, Now More Charm and More Tender. Good God. The cover art actually came from a painting at a thrift store that is still hung up in Andy's house to this day, and the title came from this fish tank. Now, if by some incomprehensibly low odds you're not one of the 37 people that listens to P, I'll play you 48 of my favorite seconds from them. Man, these guys were really ahead of their time. For real, if I wasn't familiar with this band and had to guess when this album came out, I would have assumed it was some goofy, Midwest emo revival from the early 2010s. The record predates a lot of the more popular albums in the genre that are often credited for laying the building blocks for what was to come, and these guys aren't even from the Midwest. Where does a band from California get the idea to write a song like I Hate All Vegetables, or Andy Wants to Impregnate Me with One Half of Uncle Tupelo in 1996?
I think Andy always wanted to be Midwest emo.
We always loved going
was.
to the Midwest and always had some amazing shows there with like some of the nicest people. I mean, it is the Midwest.
Yes,
But, like,
totally.
those are some of our best shows. So, sure.
I mean, I think timing wise, we did play with, like, I think it was just because who we played with. Like, we played with, Boys Life and Giant's Chair and a lot of, and what's Jimmy World and like bands that were of that era. But we were sort of more in the California, San Diego tip, like Heavy Vegetable and 3 Mile Pilot, and up here would be like Creeper Lagoon and bands like that. The Mises, I guess. Carlos. Cars Get Crushed, I guess, were pretty emo, and they were kind of contemporaries of ours.
Fitting to its title, I think Now More Charm and More Tender is one of the most charming indie rock albums of its time. Jim and Kelly's vocals play off of each other beautifully, whether they're harmonizing or just trading off sections. And there's so many ideas being packed into its 27-minute runtime. Most of the songs don't even reach the 90-second mark. Hell, this one was uploaded as a YouTube short. Yet nearly all of them stick out in my head for one reason or another. It's a well-paced mix of bite-sized, chaotic freakouts and more hooky indie rock, with the vocals often adding to the uncanniness of the rhythms. While they don't really view themselves as
Midwest emo.
per se, they have embraced the term math rock.
Math we can own, though. I feel confident that
Math?
we can own. Math, yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I always described our band as math pop or grind pop or something, because the songs were real short, had a million parts, they're weird time signatures, so it seemed more like we fit more in with like math rock. And
I think the
Yeah.
math stuff for me came out of Bastro, Drive Like Jehu, like we were contemporaries, or like those bands, and that's where that came from. And then I think it was kind of a byproduct of like the way that you would syncopate your drums to the guitar riff, and then that would just lead to basically math. We never really wrote it to be super math. It was just hooky from our standpoint.
Yeah.
Something else that stands out about this record, apart from fucking everything, are the lyrics in the track titles. Seeing names like Bruce Loves Big Star, John's Heart Soared, and again, Andy Wants to Impregnate Me, makes me feel like I've stumbled upon a personal diary of in-jokes that make it all the more intriguing. Some standouts include Stratford Landing, about a kid in first grade who shat his pants, Home, which is a sweet little ballad about touring, and See Photo, because, well, it'd be like that sometimes.
The music was serious, but everything else about the music except the music was not serious. It's important to have fun.
Definitely.
And if Andy Wants to impregnate me with one half of Uncle Tupelo makes that band more fun for us, then so be it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that specifically, actually, because a lot of the song titles are just really interesting, and they have like random names. Like, are these like just people that you knew? Or are these just like in jokes?
They all have stories attached to them.
Like
Or
Bruce
most-
Loves Big
most-
Star.
No, actually, the song is about a friend of mine and her relationship with a guy who was not Bruce. So the subject of the song is not related to the title. I don't know why, but Bruce is an old friend of mine, and he was a roommate for a long time, and he does indeed really love Big Star. It's all mixed up in my head.
And Uncle Tupelo's song was just because we all really liked Jay Farrar's voice and not Jeff Tweedy. And I don't know, I think that like if you guys had a baby that you would have a great voice or something? I don't remember that.
The band released an EP the following year called Miracle Research Center Staff, and changed their name to Potentially Egregious Error, or P for short, damn it. This is a really sweet 6 minutes of music that maintains the group's math rock sensibilities while leaning more into Midwest emo. Jim said that Mexico is his favorite song that the band ever made, and Kelly absolutely kills it on Making Soccer History. Andy actually wanted to change the name of the band to Miracle Research Center Staff, but they ultimately stuck with the P name for their second full-length, The Roaring Mechanism. Much like the EP, I think the Midwest emo tag is even more apt here than it is on the first album, but it's still damn good for 1998. The songs on here are lengthier, with some of them even reaching the 4-minute mark, but their vocal harmonies and dense rhythms translate seamlessly to these longer songs. We get some of their best performances as well, especially on Yell If I Miss Mortis and Carmen's Theme. It was also the first album to be released on Absolutely Kosher Records, which would house albums like The Coroner's Gambit by the Mountain Goats. That's the only one I've heard on this label, I gotta keep it 100. They pressed some Shushu albums on vinyl though, that's pretty cool. This record felt like a natural step forward for the band, and that's pretty much what it was.
I don't think that we were, as a band, deliberate about any direction that we took.
I don't think there was a whole lot of intention other than to do something that felt interesting, sonically interesting, hooky. But I don't think there was any like, let's do this kind of music. Like, there was that. It wasn't so much like you're always trying to like one up anybody else, but like there is sort of like you want to do something sonically interesting, and that was more like what being in bands was like then. I mean, there certainly were other kind of genres like that. Like, if we want to be a reggae band, or we want that wasn't what it was about.
After this record, they broke up. Turns out most labels didn't want to sign a band called P, especially after Johnny Depp's project around the same time more or less monopolized the P game in the eyes of record executives. They did a split with a band called Fuck, though, and they ended up getting signed to Matador, so... They kind of just stopped playing, and like all great bands, the bass player moved to Chicago.
We didn't really have a dramatic breakup, you know. So I barely even remember what happened, but we just sort of stopped playing. You know, it wasn't like we hated each other, we were fighting or anything. We just stopped doing it. So there's no reason. There wasn't any reason to stop being friends.
What I remember about ending was that we were just tired of being P, and it was at the end of a tour, like a short tour with another band, and then we played our last show. Said that was going to be our last show, but then we had planned to get back together and play, but then we didn't. It's kind of what happened.
The warehouse where all the practice spaces were shut down, and it shut down a whole lot of bands in San Francisco as well, because nobody had a space to practice anymore. So that kind of put the nail in the coffin for a bit.
They would reunite in 2010 to play the Noise Pop Festival at Café du Nord in San Francisco, which would prompt Jim and Andy to form a new band called Imperils with bassist Alan Moon, known for his work in Carlos. They recorded one self-titled album in 2013, and it's a solid piece of indie rock, especially the track Udon Bells, which makes me want to turn on my phone flashlight and wave it around like a lighter. And that's pretty much it for the story of P. Most of the members are still in California, except for Andy, who's off castrating goats in Oregon. I couldn't make this up if I tried. A lot of our conversation was about this. He's also currently playing in 2 drone metal bands called Common Eider King Eider and My Heart in Inverted Flame. Overall though, I think these 2 albums are really great, and with fall now being upon us, there's no better time to listen to weird, obscure Midwest emo math pop than right now. Unless you're watching this at some other point in the year. I'd also recommend checking out some of Andy's other bands at the time, like A Minor Forest and J Church, Tiber's other band, Lowercase, especially if you're a fan of Slint or Unwound, and Heavy Vegetable, because they were active in the same scene, sound really awesome, and this song was written about them. I want to give a big thanks to the members of P for giving me the time of day. I'll upload the full interview as a separate video. And I want to give a shout out to my buddy B-Goat for making this sick backdrop for me. I'll link his channel in the description. As always, if you enjoyed the video, you know the drill.
Cause my style was wild, I guess he heard, started telling you words that I was sexing everyone from here to Pittsburgh.